so many people could join. Most of you know me.
Morning, Cromwell.
I'm Beth Friel, and a lot of you have trained with me. And I want to go through we'll go through a few things just to refresh, but I'm going to go through some factor combinations, if you remember any of that. And then I'm going to go through self-concept. So we'll do a PowerPoint, and then we'll also look at some examples on PI. And if anybody has questions, I'm going to open the chat so that you guys can post questions in the chat. And once we have people on, I've got 2 documents I'm also going to post. They're quick and dirty tips, both on factor combinations and on self-concept change meanings. So without any further ado, I'm going to, lots of people, go into the slide deck. So just quick review, everybody. When we look at the 3 graphs, the top graph is self. That's your natural behaviors. The second graph is self-concept, and that's good for about 90 days. So if you're looking at a report that's a couple years old, that self-concept probably isn't very accurate anymore. But the self is validated to be accurate for up to 8 years. And the self-concept is, hey, I'm adapting to do my job as well as I can. And the third graph is synthesis, observable behaviors. So again, all the drives on the right-hand side of that triangle, you have a high amount of that trait. All the drives on the left side, you have a low amount of that trait. Hopefully you all at least remember that. The 4 drives, A is dominance. So someone with a high amount of dominance is pretty independent. Conflict doesn't cause them stress. They like their ideas best. Someone with a low amount tends to like being part of a team. They like harmony in their environment. They need some reassurance, and they like the best ideas. Extroversion, someone with high extroversion, processes thoughts and ideas out loud with other people. And they usually have a need to be liked. So they'll use a lot of more empathetic communication. We'll get into that. People with a lower amount of extroversion tend to process in their heads. And they get more energy being around fewer people. C is patience. High amount of C. I like to have a steady pace of work, few interruptions, and I need to understand why something needs to change if it has to change. Lower amount of C, creator of change, like fast-paced work, lots of multitasking, lots of different things. They can thrive under pressure, not tremendous pressure, but they're motivated by it. And D is formality. So a high amount of D, I like to follow rules. I need some structure. I want certainty when I make decisions. A low amount of D, I'm more flexible. I've got a plan B, if things don't work out, and it's easier for me to make decisions. So those are the 4 primary drives. Now we're going to go into a little bit more advanced stuff. So there are 6 factor combinations for every pattern. Sometimes they're stacked on top of each other and they don't have a lot of meaning, but there's 3 factor combinations with A. There's A and B, A and C, A and D, then 2 with B, there's B and C, B and D, and then 1 just C and D. And we're going to go into the 4 most common today because we only have half an hour. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. So all the factor combinations are the same factor combination, but they're strongest when they cross the midpoint. For this, A higher than B, the A is on one side of the midpoint and the B is on the other side. So you're going to see that behavior pretty strong. The middle one, they're both low, but it's the same factor combination. A is higher than B. It's going to be a little bit different, but same description. And then on the bottom, they're both high, but it's still A higher than B. I am going to post this because this is the cheat sheet. Let's see. So it's there for everybody to download so that you can see it. I'm also, while I'm here, going to post the other cheat sheet so that everybody can download that if you want. So just a quick overview. We've got A and B. So when you've got B higher than A and they're crossing, it's someone who's a persuasive communicator. They need to be liked. They're a social communicator. When A is higher than B, in the second example, more direct communication. I think of A and B as the communication. Somebody with B higher than A is going to say, oh, hey, nice to see you. What's going on? They might give feedback like, oh, you did this so well. I would love it if you could do this a little differently. A higher than B. Hello, how's it going? Why use, 10 words when 2 will do? More task focused and direct. A and D, it's about decision making. A higher than D, decisions are quick. They're comfortable with uncertainty, and I like my ideas best, and I don't need much information. Easy. D higher than A, I'm cautious with decisions. I want to make absolutely certain I'm not making a mistake. A and C, when you see that A higher than C, these people have a sense of urgency. They want to get stuff done. Time is important. C higher than A, they're more process oriented, responsive, patient listeners. Over on the other column with C and D, C higher than D is persistent. They may say, sure, I'll get that done on this time frame. And then the time comes. Oh, no, I didn't get to that yet. D higher than C, careful with rules. Time is very important. The rules are very important. And I'm going to enforce them for other people, but I'm going to do it with a sense of urgency with that lower C. B and C, this is usually important for sales. So B higher than C is someone who's really quick to connect with other people. Just, you walk into a room, they love networking, they love parties, being with people they don't know. C higher than B, it takes time to trust people. They may have lots of friends, but it's going to take time to get to know them. B and D is formality. So B higher than D, informal, come on in, don't worry. You can talk to the people who work for me. You don't have to come through me. That's fine. I don't care. D higher than B, there are protocols that we follow. And you need to talk to me before you go talk to my subordinates, because that's how it's done. So that's a quickie for those 6-factor combinations and the different ways that they're done. Again, I'm going to do A and B, communication style. And you can see that highest B and the lower A, warm, empathetic communication, but they need to be liked. People who have the factor combination A higher than B, like the example below, when you come in the morning or talk to them, you need to say hello. How's your family? What's it going? Because they think you don't like them. B higher than A, very people focused. And they want to be around people and get consensus and be collaborative. A higher than B, you see in a lot of technical fields because it's very analytical, task focused. A lot of thinking in your head about your own ideas, especially when the A is high and the B is low. Less expressive. Any questions on that?
Hey, Beth, it's Carmen. Just to clarify, did you say with the B higher than the A, they need, like first thing in the morning, they need someone to say, hi, how are you doing? Give them a warm welcome. Is that what you meant with that one right there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Otherwise, they think you're mad at them.
Right.
And I've made that mistake many times.
Well, I'm thinking, yeah, that hit me because I know someone that said that to me about someone else. They said, you know, they walk right by me and they didn't say anything. I don't think they like me. And I went, oh no, that's not true. And we talked through it and all that. But
yeah,
I'm going to check their B and their A just out of curiosity.
yeah, it's a real thing. And I didn't realize it. I would just walk to my office and go in my office and go straight down and I have stuff to do. I wasn't mad at anybody. And I used to think that, you know, sitting around talking was kind of a waste of time, but not to people who are B over A. Thanks, Carmen. So this is just a snapshot from your People Data Toolkit. So you've got higher A and lower B, both low, and you've got them both high. So make sure to look at your People Data Toolkit just to get kind of familiar with what it means, because the behaviors are a little bit different. Because the higher A, lower B, both low, it's still analytical, but less independent. When both high, it's actually more collaborative, but it's still a fairly analytical profile. Then you've got higher B, lower A, both low, and higher B, lower A, both high. So you're going to get the same social orientation, but when they're both low, it's a little less interactive and empathetic than with the high B. When they're both high, you also get more assertiveness. So not as just nice, and when I want you to like me, it's, okay, I'm going to tell you what it is, but I'm going to tell you in a nice way. Going to go to A and C. And this is really where I see a lot of conflict come in. So A higher than C, especially with high A and low C, I want to get results. I have a tremendous sense of urgency a bias towards action. I don't have much patience, and I'm self-motivated to get things done. These people tend to put a lot of pressure on other people. And I have several private equity clients, and I see this a lot with the pressure to get stuff done. Whereas on the bottom graph, I see C higher than A. I'm going to get things done at a steady pace, in order. I'm a patient listener. Pressure has the opposite effect on me. I will be paralyzed. I don't like pressure. I like notice of change because I'm collaborative, but I'm very careful. So when I see, the top profile interacting with the bottom profile, they want that person to get stuff done. But the bottom profile, better done right than fast. They may miss deadlines. They may not do stuff because they're so paralyzed by pressure that they feel like they can't get stuff done the right way. And it's much more important to get it done right. So I see a lot of conflict with these two styles. And even when you have them both low, you've still got a collaborative A, but a higher C. So it's going to be not as positive a response to pressure, but they will spring into action. When they're both high, composed and unruffled, steady and calm, one thing at a time. Higher A and C both low, you still get that initiative and proactive action, but it's for the team. When they're both high, it's someone who wants to get their own things done, but in a very methodical way. Any questions on the A and the C? And all of you know, I think A and D is the most important because it's the hardest thing to change. So A higher than D again, quick, easy decisions, comfortable with uncertainty. Plan A doesn't work out, plan B is fine. Don't worry about it. I'm flexible. I can come up with new things. Fast to fail, Silicon Valley. When we have D higher than A, I want to be certain I'm not making a mistake before I make a decision. And when the A is low, I want everybody to agree that this is the right way to go before we move forward. They rely on expertise to make those decisions. A and D, both low. Free delegation of details and authority. But they're still quick to make decisions. They don't need that much information. They're pretty confident, but they like the team consensus as well. When they're both high, it's kind of, they'll take some business risks if they have a lot of information, but they don't need complete information. Less risk tolerant. And then we can have both low, higher A, and D, still cooperation and supportive, less need for adhering to the rules. Both high, go by the book. And it's really difficult to change this person's mind because they have the expertise and they like their ideas best. You may know people like this. And they're fine people, but it's very difficult to change their mind. Hard to delegate details, hard to delegate authority. Now, this one is particularly important in regulated industries, the C and D. So on the top example, when you see a high C and a low D, it's someone who's very persistent. They won't give up. They'll keep trying. We also may refer to it as some stubbornness. I want to do it my way, and I'm going to stick to it. They'll stick to it until they're done. Again, they'll commit to a time frame, but they may not meet it. Determined to do things their own way, regardless of the rules. Down below, we'll follow the rules and enforce rules for other. You may remember the corporate hook when both C and D are low, but D is higher than C. That's someone who's flexible, but they're going to follow the corporate rules because it's important. Any questions on C and D? Okay, I'm going to jump to self-concept because this is where people think you are kind of a soothsayer. So I'm actually going to share some actual people. I made up a team of some people who I'm going to go on a trip with. And I'm going to show you me, just to demonstrate some self-concept. Now, when I look at this, myself is a high A. Now, this is from 2019, so it doesn't matter too much anymore. High A, B on midline, low C, low D. But I believed in 2019 that I really needed to change my B. Now they're all pretty much on the same side, but you can see the factor combination changed a lot. Where my B is on the right, my C, so I'm quick to connect. I'm trying to have a really social way of talking. I went from being slightly careful with rules to saying, I have to be really flexible. That's what I believe I have to do my job. Now, some of you may have multiple assessments, because if you want to see self-concept again, you might take it again. So in 2020, I took it again. So all it does is it keeps my B went a little higher in self, but my A goes much lower. I have to be very collaborative. And I'm really trying to be very collaborative. And I can also coach with self-concept, which takes my original 2019 and my new self-concept. So anybody who wants to look at that, that's kind of a valuable thing to do. Any questions on self-concept?
Hi, Beth. This is Joanna. I put a question in the chat.
Yeah, I've
yeah.
lost my chat.
Oh, no, it's okay. The 8-year rule that you were speaking about, that's new to me. When I was trained on PI, they had said yourself was ingrained in you at the age of 2 and shouldn't change. So is that something new? Should we be rerunning PI?
Well, when I read the white paper, it's only been validated up to 8 years, and it may be a lot longer. And I think, we used to say, absolutely, it doesn't ever change. But I think the thinking has evolved on that a little bit.
Okay.
So,
And
yeah.
that piece that you showed before of comparing the self to the self concept, is that a new feature? Because that's awesome. and
Yeah,
Okay.
where this is coach with
Mhm.
self-concept.
Yeah.
So I can bring up either view individually. That's 19, that's 20. Or I can coach with self-concept, which takes my original and pairs it with the self-concept.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Now, when you when you run the behavioral report, it's going to be on the original. That's not changed.
Right.
It's worth it to kind of practice this self-concept.
Okay, perfect.
Now, Beth, this is Jolene. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is that whenever you're about retaking the assessment, there was one that when I saw most people take it, you're right, they kind of match up. But there was one that had taken it, and about 2 or 3 years ago, they took it and they were specialists, and they recently retook it, and they actually changed into an adaptive personality that
Huh.
was the base. And I noticed that they went through their life experiences and stuff like that. I was more familiar with their case. So they went through a lot of different life-changing things. And I wasn't sure if that, like, have you ever, it made sense to me in the mind of adaptive, because that was a personality. And they said that when they took it, they said that something came up on the screen saying about this is don't take this test because this is who you are. And they used 2 different email addresses, so they couldn't
Yeah.
quite between, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So I thought that was interesting. What do you think about that?
Most of the time when I see that self change, and it's only been a year or 2, it usually matches the self concept. Both of those graphs turn out looking the same.
Uh-huh.
And so I think, subsequent assessments tend to, if the self changes, it's more likely to be a self concept.
I'll
Because the
look at
first
that.
time you take it, you're just like, well, what's this? I don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
And then the second time, especially if you've been debriefed, it's like, well, I want to appear, I really think I'm more dominant than what my results said.
So if they were like an employee that wasn't a manager or knew a lot of this, I mean, they obviously have taken it, but they didn't know a lot. And I'd say it was probably more a 3-year mark. I'll have to look at the self-concept.
Yeah, I mean,
I was just wondering with that personality, I thought, oh, I wonder if that one would be like if they were adapting all these years, and then, and that one that they took was a specialist was because they were so adaptive into something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think after significant life events and over time,
Mhm.
that people may change their DNA. It is laid down really early in the limbic system,
Mhm.
but I do think people change over time.
And I think
And
if
I've
it was
changed
like,
my mind on that.
yeah, I do. And I think I would say if it's like something like where they're going from one thing to another, like look at that personality. And if it's like something where they were like a specialist and then they moved to adaptive, I think that would make sense to me. You know what I mean? Now maybe going from a specialist to, well, even, a maverick, I would think that maybe they need to go maybe 302 or something and have to go to,
No, that's way beyond the pay grade. Way beyond the pay grade.
Thank you so much.
Carmen, we've got about a minute left, so I understand if people need to leave, but I'll stay on for a while if people want to stay.
Thank you. I had a question in regards to the process. Again, this is sort of something new for me. So if, say, 8 years is up and we want to have someone retake this.
Mhm.
What would the process be? Would you just send out an assessment like you would always, like it's the first one? Or
Yeah,
would you get, okay,
yeah,
okay.
because then I'll go back to mine again.
okay,
Again, if you use the same email address, which is the key, you'll get this when you hover over the date, you'll see each one. And then you can take the original and do self-concept, but let me use this caveat. If you want a new behavioral report, either delete the first assessment or use a different email address, because the behavioral report is always going to be run off the original, the one with the oldest date. But you can delete assessments.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, by going into this, picking somebody, I'm not actually going to delete this, but go to admin and delete. Does that
Beth-
help?
Beth, I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
Because when we go ahead and do like team building or we use the PI report, and we might use a report from 2021 if they went through a development program. And a lot of times, I heard you say in the beginning, like the self-concept is really just valid for 90 days.
Right.
I want to make sure I heard that correctly.
Yeah.
So how do we navigate that conversation with our employees? Like when we're talking about, okay, so we're using this tool, even though it might be, because we don't want to have them continue to take it each time, because
Right.
that becomes, I think creates more confusion. But how do we navigate that space where we talk about this? When you took this assessment, you may have been in a different role. You may have now adapted to your new role. So some of this may not be as accurate, but the report overall itself is still accurate.
Right. And you might say, it looks like on this date, you were feeling like you had to adapt. I'll just pick another person. If I look at this, like it looks like on this date, you felt like you needed to be more flexible, more casual with rules. Because you can see here, you've got D higher than C, and then in self-concept, you've got C higher than D, right? And you had to be much more patient. Do you still feel that way? I mean, that's one way of approaching it.
Okay, then just driving back to again who they see as their self-concept, their
Yeah.
self versus their self-concept, because really like how do the results align to how you see yourself on a day-to-day basis versus how you felt in that role?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And I have a question from Emily. If the PI for the individual is significantly different between the self and self-concept, which do you look at more closely when looking at relationships with the other? Emily, did you mean with another person if you're still on? She might not be.
Yes, sorry, just gonna get the mute off.
Did you mean with another
Yeah,
person?
if you're looking at like guides between people and their self and self-concept are very different, would you lean more heavily on the self or the self-concept when you go through how those two would interact?
The self, definitely. Like when you do a relationship guide, it only considers the self.
Okay. Yeah, I just wasn't sure because I know some people, they feel stretched as they get pushed to whatever their new role might be.
Yeah. And I'm sure sometimes that comes up too, where they're really adapting and they're really trying to adapt. But the relationship, especially when it comes down to any sort of stressful situation or what's natural, is between the selves.
Okay.
Any other questions? You can see a bunch of people dropped off.
Beth, I had a quick one.
Sure.
I think I'm hearing that the behavioral report is built off of the self.
Right.
and the relation report is built off of the self.
Right.
And everything that you talked about with the factor combination is built off of the self. And so it,
Right.
it sounds like the self concept is maybe just a snapshot in time of the person feeling maybe like a fish out of water, or maybe right at home with their environment. And you don't use it
Exactly.
that much more.
Nope. It's a
Okay.
snapshot in time.
Okay.
And when you take it, it also, if I look at this, the M score, how many words I selected is 38 here and 36 here. Not
Yes.
much of a drop. But eventually it may, when you're trying to act differently, you start getting tired after a while,
Mhm.
mentally. Eventually it takes its toll. So it's just worth a conversation with people. Hey, are you still feeling that? Is there a way I can support you so that you feel a little less stressed when you have to adapt?
Yeah, you pointed that out in one that we talked about where the self had 13 and the self concept had 43. That's somebody that's hearing their surroundings a whole lot.
Yeah, they just are loving being at work.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
oh my gosh, I can't wait to go back to work.
Got it. Thank you.
I saw Carmen raised your hand.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could just review the number and what it means again. Um,
Yep.
when you feel energized and you love your job versus the self-concept number where you're stressed and all that.
Let me see if I can find an example.
Okay.
I like to use my team here. Okay. So this person is highly social and very collaborative and wants harmony. But at the time, she felt like, and her biggest factor combination was B higher than A. But in her job, she felt like she had to be A higher than B, and the B goes way low. She goes from 39 to 27 because she's having to adapt her behavior so much. She's having to be very patient, analytical, quiet, and it's wearing her out. And I remember talking to her and she was about ready to quit her job. So when you see something drop like that, it's a signal. Have a conversation. Somebody is getting just worn out. But if it's really old, you might just say, hey, do you still feel like this? Or are you feeling a little bit more comfortable? So I picked 39 words to answer the question, how would I describe myself? And I picked 27 words to say, how do you think other people would describe you? So I'm de-energized.
Is there a spread that would suggest that's a big deal versus what if it's just, 5 or
Yeah, I usually say 20%.
20%? Okay.
A 20% drop is a big deal.
And can you also explain that whole concept around fighter pilot versus bomber pilot? A coworker of mine uses that example a lot, and I'm still not sure if I get it.
So a fighter pilot would be more, I'm going to go back to the factor combinations. Let's see. Taking action. So a fighter pilot is going to be A higher than C. Ready, shoot, aim. Just anticipating everything around them, taking individual action, acting before something happens. A bomber pilot would be C over A. I'm careful. I have one target. I am going to be very focused. I'm not going to just push a button and see what happens because I'm impatient. That bomber pilot, fighter pilot is the AC factor combination.
Okay, so question. And now it has nothing to do with the bomber pilot, fighter pilot, but it has to do with that M factor. So the top M number is 39. The
Mhm,
bottom one is 46.
mhm.
But oh wait, no, those are
Yeah,
self.
those are
Never
both
mind.
selves.
Never mind. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, sorry, wrong
No.
example.
Yep, no worries. But okay, so really the bomber pilot versus the fighter pilot has to do with the A and C combination.
Yep.
Okie doke.
Anything else? Because I can see there's still like 13 people on.
Beth, will you be able to share the entire deck, or is it just those slides that you downloaded for us?
I can share the whole deck.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm also going to send a link out to the recording in case anybody else is interested in looking at this. And feel free, you know, to train others. I'm gonna go back and see if I can see anybody. So I appreciate everybody being here and look for the recording once it comes through my email, and I will send it out to everybody. And thank you for being here. I hope it was useful.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you, Beth.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks, Beth.